Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the Dromaeosaurus albertensis from the Beast of the Mesozoic Raptor series. For those of you unfamiliar with what Beast of the Mesozoic is, it is a line of highly articulated dinosaur action figures sculpted by professional toy sculptor David Silva. This series started as a Kickstarter campaign a couple years ago, and it was a very successful campaign. David showed you every step of the way of how these figures are made, from concept art to prototype pics to actual photos inside the factory of these figures being made. It was truly a great experience to see this rare insight of how a toy is manufactured and how it ends up in the customer's hands. And speaking of Kickstarters, right now there is another Kickstarter campaign going on for the next series for the Beast of the Mesozoic, the Ceratopsian series. These figures look absolutely amazing. I already backed a few figures for this Kickstarter, and it's still going on right now at the time of this video. I think there's 8 days left. Not all the figures have been unlocked yet. There's some species that have never been made into toy form that are planned to be made. If you are interested in this campaign, I'll leave a link in the description so you can check it out. Very ambitious series. I just can't wait to get some of these figures in my hand and review them on the channel. If you're a dinosaur fan, definitely support this campaign. You don't see stuff like this available too often. Most of the stuff that we're used to collecting are just like static models that have no articulation. I love articulation on dinosaur toys. It just makes your collection look that much more unique with the different poses you can achieve with these types of figures. Alright, now that we're done with our little history lesson on this line, let's take a closer look at this figure. Each of the Raptors in this series came in a nice little collector's box with some beautiful artwork on it. This is the box the Dromaeosaurus comes in. You have some beautiful artwork of that animal right there, and spinning it around you get a look at the back of the box. It has all the pictures of the Raptors available in the main line, also with more of that nice artwork right there. Dromaeosaurus means running lizard. And another thing is this sleeve right here actually slides back and shows you the assembly instructions with these figures. When they come in the box, the tail is not attached. You just have to plug it into the ball joint. In the back, we'll go over that in a second, and it shows you how the clips and the stands will also work on the figure. So this is what your Dromaeosaurus will look like when you first take it out of the box. You get a display stand, you get a pair of closed toes, you get a clear rod for the stand, and you get a couple different clips to help you pose the figure in different positions. And this is the unattached tail, and all you need to do to attach the tail is that ball joint on the back right here. You just need to focus in on it. Just push it on. A little bit of force, and that's it. Your figure is now fully assembled. So let's take a quick look at the accessories before we take a closer look at the Dromaeosaurus itself. Each figure comes with a nice display stand. All the stands are sculpted exactly the same, just each one is painted differently. This is more of a winter looking display stand, and right here you can see a hole to attach the clear rod, and you just put one of the attachments on the top and your display stand is now complete. And one of the cool parts is about this display stand is there's actually storage for these extra toes. Your Raptor usually comes with the open toes installed on it, and all you need to do is just pop them off and just pop the closed toes on to give you different, there we go, display options. So if you want to store those toes and not lose them, there are 2 tabs underneath the stand right here, and you just push those toes on the tab, which is a very cool storage feature if I can actually get it on. And there you go. Now you get 2 different adapters for the display stand. You get this one right here, which is just meant for the chest of the figure to rest on, like that. And then you get the second one, which is supposed to clip, let me focus in on that, underneath this region right here. But for some reason on the Dromaeosaurus, that part of the figure is very thick compared to some of the other figures in the line, and you'll have a very tough time trying to get this clipped on without it snapping. And you can kind of wedge it right here, and it's not going to be fully clipped on. As you can see, this was a problem that popped up early on when these figures got released. This is actually the version 1 Dromaeosaurus. Right now, there is a version 2 that comes with more display rods and pieces, and I don't know if this issue has been fixed for that second release. And here is the Dromaeosaurus all posed up on its display base. So let's do a couple of quick measurements. This figure is exactly 12 inches long from the tip of the snout to the tip of the tail, or about 30 centimeters, and just about 5 inches tall to the top of the head, or roughly about 12 centimeters. Dromaeosaurus was a mid-sized dinosaur, about 6 to 6.5 feet long, about 33 pounds. All the raptors in the series are sculpted in 1/6 scale, so this Dromaeosaurus fits roughly in that 1/6 scale range. The color scheme on this Dromaeosaurus is based off the finished goshawk. All the raptors in the series have their color patterns based off real-life birds. This figure is actually the first release version of the Dromaeosaurus. A few months ago, David came out with a version 2 that had a slightly modified color scheme. I actually do like the first release version, but if you don't have the Dromaeosaurus yet, the second release actually comes with more display rod pieces. It comes with a longer rod and a couple different attachments. You actually can pose your Dromaeosaurus in a leaping position, which I think is really, really cool. And there's also a fan choice version of this Dromaeosaurus. It's the same exact sculpt, but in a totally different color scheme. So let's zoom in and take a closer look at some of the finer details on this figure. From head to toe, this Dromaeosaurus is completely covered in feathers except for on the hands. And with all those feathers, you can see there is no shrink wrapping on the skull. You can't make out the inorbital fenestra or the orbit. The eye is painted in orange with a black pupil inside the mouth. Just spinning around right here, you can see the teeth are nicely sculpted. The gum and the tongue are painted this dark purple color. Like I said earlier, the color scheme is based off the finished goshawk, and I really love this natural color scheme on this Dromaeosaurus. It's just a nice mixture of different shades of brown with a little bit of orange sprinkled in, and going along the tail right here, you get some nice white coloration. Very, very natural looking color scheme on this Dromaeosaurus. I definitely love it. Moving down to the arms, you can see the primary and secondary feathers are beautifully sculpted. Now if you look at the hands right here, let me try to focus in on that. These feathers should be attached to the second digit. They just give the illusion that they are attached, and I know some dinosaur accuracy purists weren't too happy about that, but the reason for that is that David sculpted a bunch of different parts for these Dromaeosaurs. Each of these figures aren't all 100% unique sculpts. He made, interchangeable pieces to keep the production costs down. So some of these feathers are reused on other figures, and same thing with the hands, and that's why they're sculpted in separate parts. For me, it's not a big deal. I think it pulls off the feathered arm look really, really well when you're looking at it from certain points of view. And moving down to the underside of this figure, you can see it is done mostly in white with gray striping, and you got this big tuft of feathers right here, which is actually a separate piece. Most of the figures in this line don't have this tuft of feathers glued onto the figure. I think it gives it a nice, robust look. I really like the look of that. And moving down to the legs, you can see the signature sickle claw is beautifully sculpted. It is nice and sharp. You can see more of that white and gray striping going all the way down the leg. Like I keep saying, I really like the natural looking colors on this Dromaeosaurus. And speaking of the sickle claw, I actually have a cast of a Dromaeosaurus killing claw right here. You can see the nice details on that. And I actually have a couple of other species. Here it is with a Velociraptor claw, and here it is with the claw of Deinonychus. And moving down to the tail, you can see the tail is done mostly in white, and it slowly goes to a black and brown color at the end. You can see all the feathers are beautifully sculpted, and it ends with a nice plumage of feathers at the tip of the tail, and underneath it you can see more of that nice feather detail. Overall, the sculpted feathers on this figure look really, really great. He did a great job sculpting these figures. And since these are action figures, they do come with a lot of points of articulation. So starting with the head, the mouth can open and close. And the cool part about the mouth is the tongue is actually articulated, which I think is really cool. You can pull it up and it actually can move side to side. I think that is a great touch. It adds a lot of character to this figure. And moving down to the neck, you have a joint right here, so you could get a little bit of side to side movement. And right here along the neck, you just get a little bit of side to side at the base of the neck, and very little up and down movement. And moving on to the arms can move up and rotate around 360. You have a joint. Let me focus in on that. A joint on the elbow for up and down action, and you have a joint at the wrist. Moving down to the legs can move backwards and forwards. You can almost go 360 around it, but sometimes you would just pop the leg out. It's very easy to pop it back in on that ball joint. And you have articulation at the knee. It can move backwards and forwards, and it also has a rotation at the knee. And moving down to the ankle region, you get some nice movement right here, and at the toes you have another joint right here. The sickle claw is on its own joint, so you can pose that in different positions, and the toes can move side to side. And like we went over earlier, the toes are removable. And you also have articulation on the body. You get a little bit of side to side movement at this joint right here, and just very little up and down. You know, with some force you can kind of lock the body into different positions with that joint. And moving on down to the tail, you have a joint at the base of the tail that can go around 360 degrees, and then another joint. This is where the tail actually attaches to that ball joint, and that can go around 360 degrees. And the tail is a wire bendy tail, so you can get different positions by playing around with that bendy wire in there. And there's also one more joint. This base of the tail, whoops, I just pulled out the tail, can pop out, and you see in there you have two different positions for how you want your tail to look. So if you put it in right here, it takes a little bit of a force to get it in. And did I get it? Yep, I got it in. And you just reattach the tail right here, and it gives it more of a lowered tail look. Alright, let's move on with some comparisons. Here it is with a couple other Raptor style figures. This is the Reborn Winston, which is based off the Jurassic Park Velociraptor, and this is the image a lot of the general public has of raptor type dinosaurs, even though they're technically called Dromaeosaurids. And it's really cool that David decided to start with the Raptor series and go all in with the feathers of what these animals most likely look like in real life. And in the background over here, we have what I like to call the precursor to the Beast of the Mesozoic line. This is the Carnage Collection Deinonychus, which was from Rosaurus. And Deinonychus is my favorite Dromaeosaurid, and hopefully some point in the future I would love it if David ended up doing some of the larger species of Dromaeosaurs in the line, like Deinonychus and Utahraptor and Dakotaraptor. I think that would just be fantastic if we can get something like that in the near future. And here it is with some other feathered dinosaurs from other companies. Here it is with the Safari Citipedi and the amazing Safari Ltd feathered Velociraptor. And here it is with the Reborn Deinonychus and the PNSO Microraptor. And lastly, here it is with some of the larger feathered dinosaurs. Here it is with the Safari Ltd feathered Rex. I mean, the feathered T-Rex debate just goes on and on. Is it feathered? Is it not? I really don't care. I just think that's a cool looking figure. And here it is with the Collectae Deinonychus. And speaking of Tyrannosaurus, the next series that's playing after the Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsians are Tyrannosaurs. So we're going to get some 1/18 scale Tyrannosaur figures probably a couple years from now. So that's another series that David is doing that I'm super excited for. And like I said earlier, these figures are sculpted in 1/6 scale. So they do scale really well with 12-inch 1/6 scale action figures. This is the Sideshow collectible Darth Vader. So if you ever wondered what a Dromaeosaurus looked like next to the Dark Lord of the Sith, well, there you go. So final thoughts on this figure. The Dromaeosaurus is definitely among my favorite figures in the entire series. I have a few figures in this series, but I just like the natural looking color scheme on this Dromaeosaurus is definitely among one of my favorites. The articulation is really good on these figures. You do good play around with the display base and that display rod to get some good poses. They balance okay on those little clips that they come with. Sometimes they get a little bit loose. If you want to fix that, just use some clear nail polish on those ball joints on the clips and the display rod. It should tighten it up to allow you to get some more dramatic looking poses. This figure currently retails for about $49.99. Mine is the version 1, like I said earlier in the review. And back when that one came out, it was $39.99. The version 2 one now is $49.99. That's because it comes with all those extra display pieces that the first version didn't come with. And if you're interested in picking this figure up, I'll leave a link in the description to Creative Beast Studios, which is David's own website, and you can order those figures directly through there. Or if you're outside the US, even though David does ship internationally, you can also order them from Everything Dinosaur and also Big Bad Toy Store. And like I said earlier, there's a link in the description to go check out the currently ongoing Beast of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian campaign. I really hope this campaign is successful. There's a lot of figures that I'm still waiting to be unlocked, so definitely go check it out. It's something that shouldn't be missed by any dinosaur fan. What David is doing with this line is truly amazing. So that will do it for the review. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Each subscription helps out the channel tremendously and is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys for the next one.